I'm planting the hope for the future, and I want
Yes.
you to plant the hope for the future, and you to plant hope for the future. Hi,
Hi. So tell me, yeah.
I'm
Hi.
Mark. Pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm Sierra.
Hi, Sarah.
So tell me about yourself, who you are, and what you love to do.
How much or how little do you want to know? I love being outside. I love being outdoors. I love looking at the hills like this and seeing the mountains and the trees and the sky and the smells. And I wish I was not necessarily sitting on a plastic chair on concrete. I like being outdoors. I passionately love the natural world.
Yeah, definitely. So I know you're an author and you've been doing all these amazing things with restorative agriculture. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, the idea, it was hatched a long, long time ago of doing a permanent agriculture, a perennially based agriculture. And instead of waiting around 7,000 years for perennial wheat to show up, why not imitate the natural plant communities that are already out here? And instead of planting a complete natural plant community, let's just pick out the ones, the plants, trees, shrubs, bushes, vines, canes, fruits, grasses, etc., that have food, feed, fuel, medicine, or fiber values to that. And then we can buy some degraded piece of land somewhere. I bought a real eroded, run-down, abandoned farm. Was once upon a time a cornfield, and planted it back to a close mimic of a oak savanna.
Wow, so definitely like modeling from like nature and the ways that
Totally
stuff is
biomimicking,
working.
yeah.
Biomimicry, definitely.
If you guys can imagine the ditch on the side of the road, you've seen ditches on the side of the road that have all kinds of stuff growing all over the place. Who planted that? Who plowed it? Who added fertilizer? Who did the trimming, the pruning, the weed control, the pest control, the disease control? Nobody. Why don't we plant systems that mimic that resilience of nature that all has food in it? And then we harvest that food and we either eat it ourselves, feed it to animals, or we sell it for cash dollar income.
Yeah, definitely. So you've been doing some really amazing work and been super inspiring for younger generation like myself and for just all different people. Great role model for doing stuff larger scale. So can you tell me about your experience of working larger scale in restorative agriculture?
One of the things I found out that is actually doing it at a certain largeness of scale all of a sudden got easier. And if you think about how much work you can do with a hoe or a shovel, and then I'll just use a rototiller as an example. Started the very first year, we're going to grow, as our cash crop, we're going to grow organic vegetables. So I had a rototiller and hand tools, and we could only grow so much because it'll wear you out. Well, with the money that I earned from selling those vegetables, I bought 2 junk tractors. One had a broken engine, the other one had a broken transmission, and I had the 2 swapped off, so now I had a fully functional tractor. And the amount of work that I could do with a tractor was like 100 times what I could do with a rototiller. So all of a sudden, to get to a larger scale, work became easier. Then all the weed control became easier. Then planting trees, instead of digging a hole with a shovel, putting a tree in the ground, stomping on it, go to the next hole, I'd pull a tree transplanter that I rented from our local Department of Natural Resources, and I could put in 10, 12,000 trees a day. So there was just a dramatic difference of what you can accomplish with just a little bit of a machinery helping you out. So the larger scale actually made more sense than the smaller scale. And anyways, if you have, let's say, 100 feet of hazelnut bushes, right? With 100 feet of hazelnut bushes, you go and you spend all the time to pick the hazelnuts off it. Maybe you have like 2 cups of hazelnuts. Then you go to sell that, $6. Does that really pay for your time to actually go pick them? But if you have, instead of 100 feet, if you have 100 acres, now you have enough of a volume that it justifies the work that you actually did in order to harvest them. So there's like a scale jump between immediately around the homestead and then a commercial scale, a modest commercial scale, and that jump is going to be different no matter where you are and whatever the crops are. California might be even larger scale because of how dry things are and the fact that you have to pay for water and that sort of thing. And depends on the crop too. So if you have something like Number 2, dent corn, which is all across Iowa and Illinois. You're going to need 2,000 acres just to pay your bills. Whereas with avocados, it might only be 10 or 15. I don't know with avocados.
Yeah.
Make any sense at all?
Yeah,
Okay.
it does. It almost seems like common sense, this way of like farming and kind of like living on the land. It's like just giving back so much to you and to like the planet, and just is like this loop that it just makes total sense. And I think that's why it's really appealing to a lot of people, because
And I know this camera can't see those hills right over there right now, but nobody is taking care of those hills right now. And they're producing fruits and nuts and berries right now. I could tell you a dozen different things that if we went wild crafting, we'd go find all these different wild foods to eat. Well, why not set up a system that's like hyper intensive wild crafting, and it's basically a natural system, so the amount of work that you do have to do when it's modeled after a natural ecosystem, the amount of work that you do have to do goes drastically down. No inputs, because animals are part of the fertility cycle. They're urinating and defecating all over the place. They're mowing the grass for you, which is weed control for your plants. So the system works as an ecological system.
Yeah, definitely. Like you were saying, like with the ditches and stuff, how they're totally like, they're these like little ecosystems on their own. Like a forest, no one has to rototill the forest, plant the forest, water the forest, and still it's one of the most healthy ecosystems on the planet that's just like really self-sustaining.
And since we're designing it on our own piece of property, we design it heavily weighted towards the food plants, food, fuels, medicines, and fibers, so we can take care of our human needs.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what message do you have for the younger generation who want to be involved in this movement and who want to make changes, positive changes in their lifestyles?
Boy, you should have given me this as homework last night. I would have studied. What message do I want to give? Is persevere, and actually, we are responsible for creating our habitat. If we look at our grandparents, great-grandparents, and so on, wherever people have gone, we've inherited a beautiful, rich, luxuriant ecosystem, and our economy has been an extractive economy. Try to get as much value out of a resource by eliminating it, cutting down all the redwoods, for example, and shipping them wherever we ship them to. And so that system of extraction, every generation has lived on a planet that's ecologically poorer and poorer and poorer. We're now at the time, we have not inherited a rich biological, beautiful paradise. We've inherited a radioactive plastic-coated cinder. It's our job now to replant the resource base that we need. We need to plant the trees, shrubs, bushes, and vines. The nature of the future, we have to plant those. And when we do that, we can actually do that and pay our bills. We can feed ourselves, pay our bills, and live a good life doing ecological restoration and providing food for humanity.
Definitely. So
is that a message?
That's a great message. Yeah. I wish you could go and speak in more schools and get this message out to younger people that
Give me
just
a call.
need to. Yeah, it's such an important thing for people to know for sure. So as you probably know, the world is in a really critical state right now. There's a lot of really horrible stuff happening. And a lot of people are saying that we're on this tipping point where either things are going to get drastically worse and we're going to fall into this chaos, or things are just going to start getting better and better. So do you think that there's hope for the future? And if you do, what is that hope for you?
Well, for one thing, if things get to this chaotic point, I'm not going there, because I'm planting the hope for the future, and I want you to plant the hope for the future, and you to plant hope for the future. Every step we take, we either make the path better or worse. So everything we do to consider what it is that we're doing, why we're doing it, how we're doing it, are we making this planet better or worse? Now, we're not going to be able to fix everything all at once, but we can start where we are with what we have, with the resources at hand, one seed at a time, one tree at a time, and don't turn back. Transform your life. That's the power of one. You have at least a little bit of authority over your own life. And so if you start restoring ecosystems and planting the resource base of the future, producing your own food, supplying others with food, and you continue that process all the way throughout your whole entire life, and you affect others, it's going to ripple out, and that's the hope for the future.
Oh yeah, that was awesome. Okay, do we have time for a couple more here?
Do you have time for a couple more of these? Well, you're the one with the list that's 7 miles long.
No, I'm not doing them all. There's just a couple of little things I want to write down. Yeah, so for you, how did you find your voice as an author and as like learning to like speak out to people? Where did this all like kind of start and come from for you?
Wow, that's interesting, because I think a lot of my not being afraid to speak came from the family that I grew up in. Is that I've got 2 brothers and 36 first cousins, and if you didn't speak up, you weren't heard. And then, you know, neither of my brothers are stupid people, so they wanted to defend their particular point of view. And so in order to just be heard, you had to like speak up and stand your ground and defend your position. So I think that's where a lot of that originally came from. But as far as finding a voice as an author is, I actually have lived this way. I've lived this way for my adult life. I was 22 years old when I quit my job and never turned back. So I haven't had a job since I was 22 years old. And how do you pay your bills when you don't have a job? Well, you do what I explain in the book. So what I did in the book, it's not that I found my voice. I got sick and tired of explaining to people what I do. It's like, well, what do you do? And it's like, oh, well, and it's complicated because it's a pretty complex. It's not complicated, it's complex. And so I just started writing it all down in a book and threw it out there, and lo and behold, it kind of became popular.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like you're saying, it's complex, but at the same time, it's like common sense. So it's really funny to try to find the balance and to speak to people who really just have no clue.
Right.
I definitely noticed that as well.
One of the things also with the how the book is all laid out and the complexity of things is once you have a diverse, complex system set up like these hills over here, one year this is doing really well, another year this is doing really well, then this is doing really well, this is doing really well. Different years, different seasons, and people say, well, what's the thing that's the most profitable on your farm? And it's like, there's not any one thing that's the most profitable, and that leads you down a dead-end road. If you figure that this is the most profitable and you plant all of that, you lose the synergies of a complex system, and then you lose the resilience that you have when, if it's super dry, this is going to do well. If it's super wet, that's going to do well, and there's a certain degree of freedom that comes with that, and so many people will ask me, well, you know, you told me that you used to do cut flowers. It's like, well, I did. I used to do cut flowers, and I don't anymore because the asparagus is, you know, paying me more money. Well, you said, what's your system? What's this? What's that? And because most people were trained in like our whole Western reductionist worldview, that you reduce something down to the simplest one thing, and then we live in a soundbite world that everything's happening really, really fast. When was the last time you sat down and watched a tree grow for 30 years? That's not something that you can explain it in a paragraph, but it's not something that you learn overnight. You have to like interact with nature at nature's pace. And I know we're on like answer creep here. I went all over the map on that one.
No, that was awesome. Yeah. So what do you think about finding your niche and like finding your market for each person? Like, what are your words on that?
On the marketing, okay, first of all, everything on this planet is for sale. Everything.
Yeah,
it is. You can buy recycled pink plastic sandals, purple and white striped zucchini, everything, you can find it. And I'll use a couple of examples. If I sell direct to you, you're a customer, I grow the product and I sell it to you. It's like zucchini. I've just grown this product and I sell it directly to you. I can sell it at a retail price like you would pay at a grocery store, and I get all that price to myself. The higher the price of any one thing, the lower the volume is that you're going to be able to sell. The lower the price, the higher the volume. And I'll use as a extreme example is number 2 dent corn again. You can sell ocean-going ships full of number 2 dent corn because it's used for processing and turning into all kinds of everything. It's like this big X of here's price, that's the volume, and here's volume, here's the price. If you want to move a huge volume, the price is going to be low. If you want to have a huge price, the volume is going to be low. Somewhere in there is a range of prices and volumes that will work for you. Now let's take the zucchini example again. Too many people are doing farmers market, for example. They go to farmers market when it's zucchini season. Every table at farmers market has zucchini, right? Well, everybody who's at farmers market is probably growing zucchini at home. Why would they go to farmers market and buy zucchini? So you work all day, you pick your zucchini, you go to farmers market, you stand around all day and you don't sell anything. And you say, well, gee, obviously there's no market for zucchini. There's not enough of a market for zucchini, I can't sell it. But that's not the real problem. That's a real observation, but it's inaccurate. The real problem is that you didn't have enough zucchini to get it into the real market. So if all of the people at farmers market pooled their product together, put it on a pallet, it could go on a truck and it goes into Whole Foods or Walmart and it's sold in a day. But here we are on this X again. You got this high volume, what's the price going to be like? It's going to be a lot lower. Yeah. I can sell you the zucchini direct, but I can't sell that much. I sell it at farmers market direct retail, but the price, I mean the volume is down here. Well, here I can sell all the zucchini in the world, but the price is down here. So what's that blend and what's that mix in the middle? And that's something that we all get to learn. And so one of the ways that I was able to negotiate that whole process is I joined with a whole bunch of other vegetable growers to sell my produce. And that's the Organic Valley Co-op. Most people are familiar with that for the dairy products and cheese, yeah. And so that was the case in point that when I first joined, there were, I think, a dozen of us produce growers, and we just, like if everybody's growing cucumbers, we all put our cucumbers on the same pallet, it goes on a truck, we get paid a low price. But somebody else made the sales call for me, somebody else ordered the packaging, somebody else arranged the freight. I just deliver my cucumbers and away we go. And so if I can figure out how to produce those cucumbers at a lower price, then I win. So let's take the nuts, for example. If you grow chestnuts, and you do herbicide, fungicide, weed control, pest control, your spray, irrigation, all this, your expenses are way up here. Well, if I set mine up as a natural system and I only get half the yields, but I didn't spend anything to get those yields, I win.
And it's building soil at the same time, making it better and better.
Right.
So next time you grow the produce, it's just going to get
more
better and more, and you're just going to increase it.
So are you guys going to be at the workshop tomorrow?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good.
I'm super stoked.
Because you'll get to see what I do in the alleys in between. So
yeah, I'm really excited. So yeah, definitely finding where your passion lays in the market, in the niche. Like, what is your passion? What can you do to make a difference and have like fun while like
and fun while doing it? Live a good life.
Because you don't want to do something that you absolutely hate, obviously. Right. But if you can do something that you love, that's also like sustaining the earth and other people and just creating this awesome system. That's just amazing.
There are times when you're going to be working your arse off. It's going to be cold. It's going to be hot. You're going to be freezing. You're going to be wet. And let's take acorn squash, for example. If I grow an acre of acorn squash, it's 35,000 pounds of squash. Somebody has to pick that up, wipe off the dirt, put a sticker on it, and put it in a box, and that's me. So when it's time to pick up 35,000 pounds of squash,
there's no romanticizing it. It's just you can't do that. Yeah, definitely. There's yeah, it's a lot of hard work, that's for sure, and you have to be prepared for it, definitely.
And then you take, actually, speaking of hard work, we've mostly all seen pictures of like village rice growers in like India and Southeast Asia, where everybody's out there in the paddies and they're sticking these rice plants into the ground, and everybody's like, oh, woe is me, that's such horrible work. But what they don't tell you is the fact that they do that like one day. And then what do? You sit around and you invent tea ceremonies while you're waiting for your rice to grow. And in the rice paddies, there's fish, there's snails, there's ducks, there's fruit trees growing all around. And what do you do the rest of the year? Well, you drink tea.
I'm so stoked to be able to, like, I want to be able to go see that. And I'm going to travel around and, like, look at all these different sites and try to, like, see, because you can definitely look at them and then take back the best design that works for you and take out those ideas that are, like, the greatest for, like, your individual design, and then doing that for sure.
So when are you going on this trip?
I'm thinking I'm going to go to Australia in 2018 in November. I'm going to try to visit.
So you guys are going to invite me on this trip?
Yeah, you should come along. Be fun.
Let's do New Zealand and Australia.
New Zealand too, yeah. So I have one last question for you. And if you could, it's a kind of a funny question, but I like throwing it in here on the end. So if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Love. And I already got it.
You already got it.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, thank you so much. That was really awesome interview, and that was just like a ton of fun.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Right,
that was great.